It's the 50th anniversary of Star Trek, and I'm talking the best episodes of Star Trek today. So, here are the 10 best episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation. With the 50th anniversary of Star Trek, I just wanted to talk about my absolute favorite episodes of Star Trek. This list is totally subjective. It's my list. There's nothing about this that's objective. You're going to have a totally different list, and that's awesome. Let's talk about it in the comments section. But before we start to talk about my top 10 favorite episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, here are 10 honorable mentions. Allegiance, Clues, I, Borg, The Inner Light, Lower Decks, Measure of a Man, Q, Who, The Pegasus, Redemption, Cause and Effect. With the honorable mentions out of the way, here are the 10 best episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation. Number 10 on our list, Conspiracy. This episode is one that kind of gets forgotten a little bit because they never went anywhere with the plotline, but this episode has a great plotline about little parasite aliens that are infecting the leaders of Starfleet and controlling what they're doing, and Picard has to stop this conspiracy. The end of the episode actually sets up sequels to this episode, and they never did that. I never understood why, because it was perfect for a great ongoing storyline of what are these guys doing? What are they trying to do? Why are they trying to take over Starfleet? Where's this plotline headed? I love this one. I hope you do too. Check it out. It's one of the few good first season episodes. Number 9 on my list is The Neutral Zone. Another first season episode. A lot of people don't include it on their list. I really like this episode. This feels like very classic Star Trek to me. A ship from the 21st century with a group of cryogenically frozen people are de-thawed by the crew of the Enterprise, and you kind of have this fish out of water thing going on where people with kind of our perspective of the future get to interact with the crew of the Enterprise. Along with that, you've got a plot line revolving around the Romulans and kind of what's going on, and some hints about the Borg and what they're doing. Very cool episode, very simple episode. I understand why a lot of people overlook it, but I think it's a very solid episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. Number 8, Yesterday's Enterprise. The Enterprise encounters a time rift. The Enterprise C, which was believed to have been destroyed 20 years earlier, emerges from all of this, and suddenly the entire timeline changes. This is the stuff classic Star Trek is made out of. You've got time travel, you've got the return of Tasha Yar in this alternate timeline where things have changed. The Federation is at war with the Klingons, and a great sacrifice must be made to repair the timeline and put things back the way they're supposed to be. This is just very classic Star Trek. This is also when they were doing some of the best stuff they were doing, where they were establishing little seeds to where there were little elements that could change here and there, and what they did. And they did some very smart writing that came out of this plot line. Just the cleverness of this plot line itself was very nice. And so number 10 on our list, Yesterday's Enterprise. Number 6 and 7 go together, and that's Sins of the Father and Reunion. Number 5 and 6 I'm going to put together, and that's going to be Sins of the Father and Reunion. These are 2 episodes dealing with Worf and his relationship to the Klingon Empire, and essentially how he has to sacrifice his honor in order to keep the Empire together. And then through this, you realize that there's this guy named Duras that you hate, and how he's trying to bring Romulan influence in, but he's too corrupt, he's got too much power, and so once again, Worf has to kind of intervene on this stuff. You get to see a great story about Worf, revenge, the love of his life, and realizing that Worf is in fact the toughest guy in the universe as he brutally murders someone and basically gets away with it, which is what makes Worf awesome and what makes me love these 2 episodes combined together as kind of one 2-parter deal that's not really a 2-parter, but I love it and I view them together all the time. Number 5, Unification. This is the Next Generation episode where we finally get Spock on the show, and in it I thought they found a pretty good way to do this. This was right around the time that Star Trek VI came out, and the plot of that revolves around Spock volunteering the Enterprise to go intervene on a matter with the Klingons. Of course, Kirk doesn't like the Klingons. The plot goes really bad for Kirk and McCoy. And so through what happens in that movie, it affects Spock in a way that leads to the plot of this episode, where Spock, now wanting to help mend and bring back together the Vulcans and the Romulans, does not want to bring the Federation into it, and he wants this to be a personal matter where he's trying to do this on his own. And it all ties into this other storyline, which is very cool. I thought it was a great I thought it had some great interactions between Picard, Spock, talking about their ideologies, their differences, and why Spock is doing what he's doing. Great Star Trek. Great to see these two worlds combined in a way that makes sense and not as forced as some of the other times they did this, and not as awful as Generations, where they bring Kirk to Next Generation World just to kill him by him falling off of a bridge. I'm still bitter. Number 4, family. Number 9, family. This is the episode right after Best of Both Worlds, where Picard had been kidnapped, turned into a Borg. The Federation fleet has been annihilated. A lot of big, gigantic, emotional stuff just happened. And then they make probably the most personal episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, where Picard goes back home to his family and just has family drama with his brother about their differing ideologies, and the older brother acting like an older brother, and Picard struggling to deal with the emotions of everything he just went through. It's maybe the least sci-fi of any episode of this series, but the most personal, the most human. Number 3, Chain of Command. When Picard is sent on a secret mission to investigate some Cardassian stuff, Ronnie Cox, that guy from Beverly Hills Cop and RoboCop and Total Recall, comes in to take over command of the Enterprise. He, of course, butts head with Riker, which leads to some great moments where you get Riker who you like and Ronnie Cox who you don't like. Butting heads, seriously. Then back with Picard, he is captured by the Cardassians and tortured, and even while being tortured, he still screams, "There are 4 lights!" Great stuff. Number 2 on my list is one of those episodes that's on everybody's list, and that is the Best of Both Worlds. There's so much going on, so many great storylines that in and of themselves would make for a great episode, and they're all in here. So from the get-go, you've got pressure being put on Picard to pressure Riker to accept a command of another starship. You've got another officer coming in who wants to take Riker's position. This plotline right here would be a great episode in and of itself, but it's worked along with this perfect storyline where the Borg are coming in to take over the Federation, and therefore the Federation has to figure out what they're going to do. And all of that gets forgotten because we spend our time thinking about Locutus of Borg, how Picard becomes a member of the Borg and destroys the entire Starfleet. This is great Star Trek. It's epic storytelling. It's massive. It's a story of redemption. It's a story of command. It's exploring Riker and what makes him tick. It's showing us that Riker is a strong captain. He just thinks his own way and he's not going to be told when and what to do. This is great Star Trek, great storytelling, great character development. It's the Enterprise versus their biggest villain, the Borg. Absolute great Star Trek. But to me, the best episode of Star Trek The Next Generation is the last, and that is All Good Things. Perhaps it's because of nostalgia, and I actually watched this one live. I went to a buddy's house, saw it, loved it then, loved it now. Maybe I'm swayed by nostalgia, but I think they ended this show perfectly. In fact, so well that it actually set up the movies for failure when it's like, hey, let's do more of this thing that just ended perfectly. But it's a great look back at the series. It's a great look forward what could be, and it bookends the series very well in finalizing off this storyline with Q. It's a great story in of itself. It's a great exploration of the characters and getting final moments for each of them. Love this episode. It's a great finale. And of the scheme of TV shows ever, so many shows end with a whimper. They end awkward. They end too safe. This show ended on top with All Good Things. Love this episode. So that's my list of the 10 best episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation. What are your favorites? Comment in the comment section. Tell me. I'd love to talk with you. I don't want to just talk about Star Trek. I want to talk about Star Trek with you in the comment section. So please tell me which ones of my list are just dumb. With that, if you like this video, please click that subscribe button. I talk about Star Trek a good bit. I actually just filmed a video. You can see a link to it right there where I talk about the best episodes of Star Trek, the original series. I did one where I ranked all of the movies. I did a Q&A deal. Check that stuff out. I want to talk Star Trek with you. Please join us in the comment section. Thank you for watching.